saying how bad the weather was and how could they have possibly have been prevented. In this year's budget, you have failed to properly fund any new flood prevention measures or mitigating measures. Thank you.
I won't say it's another Lib Dem idea, just to keep David honest on this. But we'll be looking at further than just the Loddon and the Embrook to include climate change, increasing paved areas, and increasing surface water problems. The new FPLs are creating more and more paved areas. They're taking up green space that right now absorbs water. This is only going to lead to increased flooding. Even with the nil detriment, even with everything else, it's probably going to get worse. We'll be working with the Environment Agency to update flood zones in all of the borough to be more realistic, that 1 in 100-year floods now seem to be occurring every 5 years. Twice a decade we seem to have floods that we should only have once every 100 years. Something is changing dramatically. We need to look at what is happening. And I really want to say, I hope this is not going to be a sham. I hope there's a real hope that we will actually do something to make it easier for people to get to work and to go about their normal business other than by boat in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Simmons, please.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm speaking also as the Vice Chairman of the Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service this evening, and I would like to pass on the fact that they've been very complimentary about their work with Wokingham during the recent floods. But Gary is absolutely right. We've got to make good better, and now's the time to start addressing that. Last week I was at the fire conference, the annual fire conference, which all of the fire authorities and fire services in England and Wales have, and that was at Cardiff. And I heard two nuggets at that conference that I'd like to pass on to you. The first was from a speaker from the Met Office, and her message was that climate change, whatever its cause, is here for the foreseeable future. And that's going to mean warmer, drier summers with more increased wildfires, and it's also going to mean milder and wetter winters with increasing amounts of flooding and extremely heavy snowfalls. And what was interesting was that she said that this year we've not had more rain than a normal winter, we just had it all at once. And that's going to be pretty typical for many, many years in the future. The second nugget came from a speech from Worcestershire, and I think there are things that we can learn from what they've done. They said that in 2007 they had 4,000 houses flooded as a result of the River Severn rising. This year, when the river rose even higher than it did in 2007, they had only 119 houses flooded, and of course the famous cricket pitch both times. But what I think is important is to learn what they did and how they achieved that. First of all, they worked very, very closely with the Met Office so that they knew exactly which houses were liable to be flooded. And at the same time, they knew to the centimetre how high that river was going to rise every half an hour, and were able to take evasive action. Secondly, they had flood defences ready to put in place at a moment's notice, which they did. And they also made very good use of the social media, which they said was the best and the quickest way to get information through to people, and that gave a very good service to the public. Fourthly, they had a paramedic on each boat. And fifthly, the most impressive thing to me was the protocol that they had set up with 4 police authorities, the ambulance service, 2 search and rescue agencies, voluntary agencies, and 4 fire services. And because of this protocol, every one of those agencies knew how they were going to respond in such an emergency, what their role was going to be. They had clearly defined risk management. They were able to integrate their assets and share resources, and had a constant media message. Now, I know that was a big county, but we can do something similar, I think, in our borough. And they warned that...
What time is up?
Still orange. Okay, just finish the sentence. They warned that what's happened in the Severn Valley is going to happen in the Thames in the near future. And so I urge the council, when they do set up this working group, to include the Fire and Rescue Service as part of it as well, because they are willing to work with us. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Patman, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support the principles of this motion and acknowledge the amount of work done in the borough and the help we received to alleviate some of the flooded areas. But I had issues in my ward that have been caused by runoff from adjacent land, and we need to make sure that we incorporate into our discussions the role that landowners have in the maintenance of ditches and other water runoff from their land. This applies to those with fields in the floodplain of rivers as well. We need to have representation from some of these landowners on the task force to ensure that we get their cooperation during future possible events. And I would like to give all the support I can to ensure that my residents have the best possible support against any future floods.
Councillor Harris, please.
Thank you. Yes, I fully support this motion. I think the gist of it is pretty good. I've got a couple of issues. One, I hope that when the work can be done, we had a presentation at the partnership meeting a couple of weeks ago, or the other week ago. And what was very interesting is that there were some places that had never flooded before that were flooded, and there were places that had flooded in the past that didn't flood this time. And I think we need to learn from what happened during this period of exceptional weather. And one of the things I would certainly be looking for from this task force would be a clear indication of the outline of the floodplain, and it be clearly identified as to what is the agreed position in our borough. One other area I think could fall in on from Barry about land, and that is, I think we had flooding on the railways. And I think we need to also include transport routes, including the railways, in any such task force, because the impact of Mayfair for a week was quite dramatic, and yet it was only a relatively small amount of water that caused the problem. So we do need to include them in any task force as well. Thank you.
Councillor Knox,
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I do thank my colleague Gary for introducing this motion to raise the profile of this major and very topical issue, and also for other members' thoughts and contributions, and especially calling for the experience and actions in another flood area that we do need to learn from. We're now in our legacy period where I accept we need a coherent programme to reduce the impact in a future event, accepting we'll never totally remove the risk of flooding. We also need to ensure that we do not build in new problems as our extensive house building programme proceeds. The recent event predominantly caused flooding from rivers, fluvial flooding, mainly from the Thames, where the only house flooding occurred, and Loddon, but also the effects of excessive groundwater levels from 2 months' continual rain, causing various other problems, including sewage rising up into domestic areas. This contrasts with July 2007, where it was surface water flooding, fluvial flooding, from a widespread cloudburst over a wide local area. I would comment that work's done since 2007 in partnership with local flood groups, the EA, National Flood Forum and others, where we put in individual house protection schemes, were successful, and for the Embrook, where we removed vegetation clogging and removed a major culvert which trapped the flow and resulted in no flooding in that river this time. So we need to consider all types of flooding, not just our recent experience. In short, and taking note of the Worcestershire experience, can I just list some of the things we are or about to do? We're ensuring we've logged and analysed all instances of flooding since last Christmas. Secondly, worked with the local partnership, and we will continue to, the Environment Agency, Thames Water, Fire Authority and others, to identify improvement schemes and funding sources. We will need to work with all of them and our residents and landowners. Thirdly, we're also setting up a task force specifically to minimise road disruption by diverting floodwater or raising road levels. I have mentioned this before, and I refer especially to the A327 between Harbourfield and Shinfield, the 329 Lower Early Way around the Showcase Cinema, and the A321 between the A4 and Henley Bridge. Fourth, and it has been mentioned before, I aim to work to set up multi-agency catchment partnerships, especially for the Loddon with its own tributaries, the Blackwater and Whitewater, which originate in Hampshire and Surrey. As far as the Thames, we're already part of the River Thames Alliance. Next, working with EA on evidence-based reviews of the floodplain boundaries and looking at opportunities for more single house protection and other protection schemes. Then to ensure the best possible practice from developers as we patiently await the long overdue government regulations on sustainable drainage schemes for new developments. And last, to bring forward our flood risk management strategy for consultation. Its emergence delayed as our officer resource was diverted to attend to the recent floods. Madam Mayor, I support the motion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barnett, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just really like to pick on a couple of points, really. I mean, Tom McCann was saying failures. It was exceptional storm and flooding. It kind of started before Christmas, finished mid-February. That's a very, very long time. Exceptional. Nobody could predict that. There are other agencies involved, like the Environment Agency. They must be involved with the flood review. Also, Rochelle Shepherd-Dubay was mentioned about rivers. I mean, all rivers must be included. And kind of really, you've got the most important, biggest river in our borough, or rather, touches the north of it, the River Thames. There you go. I am delighted to second this motion. My ward of Horton has a river running through it, and it's been especially affected by the recent flooding, with Mill Lane by Sintram Mill being closed and reopened on several occasions. I'm keen this council sets up a flood review task force to look at all the existing policies dealing with flooding and considers these and any new ideas. I firmly believe that where possible the River Loddon is dredged. Also, the river is regularly cleared of all obstructions and debris on a regular basis. This should apply to all rivers in our borough, including the River Thames. The impact of flooding has a great effect on people and businesses, with a huge social and economic cost, including the traffic chaos which has been alluded to earlier on. Even those who are not flooded this time were suffering from the anxiety of potential flooding. We really should not have to go through all this again. The environment is important, but so are the needs of people in our borough of Wokingham. I'm delighted to be seconding this motion, and I'm fully supportive of this motion and commend it to this council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cowan, do you wish to say something?
Very briefly, thank you. I would ask Councillor Cam, he calls the motion sham when it was brought to the council with the very best of intentions. I think perhaps he should reflect on his time over a decade ago when he was the cabinet member for finance, and I wonder if at that point in time there was any form of crisis, he would have been able to get his money from the minimum of reserves they had to deal with such a crisis. At least because we have these reserves, Anthony has been able to do this, and I would thank him for that. Angus Ross covered the direction this council is going, which is very positive and one we should all welcome. By passing this motion, we can give Woking Council the tools we need to ensure a policy to protect residents and businesses against increased flooding, ensure that this strategic flood risk assessment and the associated Environment Agency flood models are informed by recent flood events and kept up to date, thus preventing future increased flood in the borough. This should enable councils to take action to reduce the impact of flooding. And finally, it should really enable the council to tackle the knotty question relating to development in and around floodplains. And I do commend this motion to the council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All those in favour of the motion, please show. Anyone against? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. I now call on Councillor Rob Stanton to move motion 355.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I just before pray your indulgence for a few seconds, and from this side of the house, just welcome back Mike Gore to the council, and
I'm particularly pleased to welcome him back because I've got quite a lot of work for him to do. and I've saved up some naughty issues for you, Mike, so welcome back. Lovely to see you. And I'm really pleased you've stayed for the whole evening's entertainment, so well done. Thank you very much. May I wish you're making good progress. May I wish you a complete speedy recovery ASAP. So lovely to see you back. And I'll give you the work tomorrow. Now there's a few extra seconds, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Members, I've decided to put in this motion really to make clear our commitment to further improving the working relationships with our colleagues who work so hard in our towns and parish councils. My concern is that with the loss of the LSP, that was the local strategic partnership, those who've forgotten that, and in effect being replaced by the new Health and Wellbeing Board, parish and town councils did lose a key communication channel in the LSP, and we need to rebuild a suitable platform to replace that for the future. The Borough and Parish Annual Council, while well supported and incidentally had a record attendance last year, we packed this chamber out with a number of vital issues debated, but that's not enough just once a year. One key issue of concern coming out of last year's conference was that communications needs to be so much better, and a number of ideas emerged from that. And I am bound to say that would really enhance and help us build trust with our colleagues in the parishes. Better and open communication will build more trust, allow us to move forward in a spirit of collaboration, which I would very much like to see. We now live in a much tougher world in a financial sense, and as funding gets even tighter, as Anthony Pollock continues to tell me 10 times a day, it certainly will get tougher, and we must seek new ways to share costs, reduce duplication where it exists, and indeed it does, and to get better value for our residents, who really are the only people that matter in this. We have started that work, justice building, and we have some proposals coming forward that will tackle the communications piece, and as a result allow us to further develop ideas that we need. We have a small group of parish and town members which we wish to expand, I hasten to add, working with us with the aim of some firm plans being developed in the next few months, and will no doubt come back here as well as to the annual conference where we will ask for its ratification. That is the motion, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do you have a second, please?
We do.
Do you wish to speak now?
I reserve my right for later.
Thank you. Does anybody else like to speak on this?
Thank you. At the last meeting, I indicated that Wales Liberal Democrats will be bringing forward a motion on how we could consider transferring services to towns and parish councils and possible transitional arrangements to help facilitate this with benefits to both parties. The Conservative motion before us fails to move us forward, nor is it ambitious enough. So I will propose to amend this motion in a constructive manner by proposing our amendment. I'm not sure if you want to circulate it now, Madam Chair. It's up to you how you want to be on it. Okay. This amendment is our attempt to move from where we are to where we need to be in the future if we are truly going to work with towns and parish councils in partnership and not simply dump services and run away from our responsibilities to our communities throughout the borough. We want this council to develop a transitional plan for any town and parish council who are willing to take on service professions within their area. We should allow an incremental transfer period, giving towns and parish councils the time to be helped with any internal training, equipment, various things that can come up. Failure to support town and parish councils leading up to and through this service delivery transfer period will only undermine the work. We as a council would require that they, the towns and parish councils, are capable of delivering the service without damage to the already great work that they provide. Town and parish councils may need time to enter into joint arrangements with other town and parish councils. They may need to raise precepts to pay for these services, and fail to allow the time to do this would just be wrong. Many town and parish councils have viewed Wokingham Borough Council's antagonistic relationship with Wokingham Woodley Town Council and simply said they don't want to be involved in this type of service, nor do they want to have the costs simply dumped on them. So they walk away. We need to think past the Wokingham Borough Council's short-term view and truly engage in the town and parish councils while addressing the vexed issue of double taxation. If we as a borough can work with other town and parish councils to deliver services and have a vision that they and we can buy into, then the communities for which we serve will be better. Thank you.
Do you have a second? Do you wish to speak now?
I think, do you need to hand out the amendment first?
We have to see.
Yes, I'd like to speak, please. Thank you very much. When I heard Troy Group would not accept the amendment, the Liberal Democrats, I looked through the amendment. I was trying to look at what the problem was. So I began to look at it and question this. Is there a problem around consulting towns and parish councils? I guess not, because Rob's clearly, his intentions are that this is what we should do. Or is it about double taxation? I have some concerns about this. Double taxation is when taxpayers are charged twice for a service. For example, if parish and town councils took on the service that is now a borough council responsibility without having sufficient funds passed on to them from the borough council, parish and town councils would have to raise the money through their own precept. And it could mean that the taxpayers were paying twice for a service, or double taxation. Take, for example, the request for the library in Twyford in 2006, when 1,400 signatures petition was presented to the council by Stephen Conway. Because an empty building became available in the centre, and Councillor Brown said it was up to the parish council to raise the money through an increase in its precept. This was after saying that Wokingham was an affluent area, and if people wanted a book, they should go out and buy one. However, at least one of your group had some sense. Councillor Diane King, in charge of the library service portfolio at the time, spoke a lot of sense when she replied in the article, in the Private Advertiser, saying, "I'm not sure it's possible for residents to purchase a facility. We have to provide as a statutory responsibility." So where will you draw the line? I can understand the working together to improve the life for our residents, but I am concerned that this will lead to an excuse to push financial burdens onto town and parish councils, some of which are very, very small. Perhaps you begin by budget consultations with our town and parish councils, and of course with the wider consultation to residents of our borough that pay for these services. This is something we've been asking for a really long time. Is it smoke and mirrors? Is it a genuine will to work with the towns and parish councils? Is it passing on some problems that the council have because of budget deficits? Looking at ways to find ways that the parish council can raise through precept. This is what Frank Brown said. He said, back in 2006, I suggest the community goes to the parish council who have tax-raising powers, and if they feel so strongly, they can raise funds themselves. He added, residents must ask the parish council to include the purchase of the building in its precept. That is the sort of thing I am really worried about. I know Mr Brown is not here anymore in the council. I hope that view isn't still here in the council, hanging on somewhere in the air. and I hope that this actual motion that you've put forward is genuine, but I don't see the problem with you accepting this amendment. So I'd like you to support this amendment, please, otherwise I shall have some serious concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Who else would like to speak? Is anyone?
To the amendment.
Councillor Cowell, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just really, I'd like to address a question to Rob Stanton when he speaks later, and just for him to confirm that, as written in the amended motion, it is not the intention of this council to start setting up policies that will result in a reduction of services of double taxation to parish and town councils.
Accept the amendment.
Thank you.
Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment on one of the things that Councillor McCann mentioned. He mentioned Woodley Town Council. As you all know, I'm the current leader. I think the point that he was making was when it was controlled by the Liberal Democrats. The Liberal Democrats controlled Woodley Town Council were not interested in working with Wokingham Borough. Since the Conservatives took control of Woodley Town Council, there has been massive working together. You only have to look at the work being done on Bullmarsh Leisure Centre, which is a huge project to identify how we can work together. So his statement is relevant to when it was controlled by the Liberal Democrats. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Jefferson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think really on this motion, with Tom's amendment, he needs to catch up. I mean, a lot of this has been done by a number of towns and parishes around the area. If we look at the working between Woking Borough Council and Airlie Town Council, for example, I mean, I can give you a list as long as my arm of the projects where we've worked together to the benefit of the residents of Airlie. People don't care which council or which body provides services, as long as they get the services that they want. So we shouldn't get too hung up on the boundaries between councils. Let's try and do what's right for the provision of services and helping the residents in our borough. I mean, for example, I will give you a few examples. I'm not going to read all what examples are. But we have provided a BMX track in Lower Airlie. Woking Borough Council owns the land. They provided development contributions. Airlie Town Council designed it, installed it, and is maintaining it. Partnership there. We've got play equipment at Soldier Oak Park, where again the funding was obtained by the Borough Council. It's buoying, it's maintained by the Town Council. We have community centres across the town. The two community centres have been in existence for 25 years. They're owned by the Borough Council, they're run by the Town Councils. We've just in the last year taken on the running of the community and youth centres in Airlie. So again, a transfer there. These sorts of facilities, it is possible to run them at a profit or a small loss, small break-even position, and that should be what we're aiming for. So let's try and get the right body running these facilities, whether it's Borough Council, voluntary bodies, town parish councils, whatever the body is, shouldn't get, again, as I said earlier, shouldn't get hung up on it. We just got to improve the way we run these things, do them in an optimum way, and get the best value for money for the residents. One of the best examples of use of a voluntary body in Airlie is the Airlie Adopt a Street initiative. Two groups of residents in Airlie have got together to have a scheme where they do litter picking across the town, and that's supported by the Town Council and the Borough Council in providing the tools for the job. Completely run by volunteers, and it's an excellent scheme. So there are lots of models of how these things are being done, and I very much support the original motion. Let's pursue these sorts of opportunities and see how we can deliver these services to the benefits of the residents. Thank you.
Councillor Gray.
Thank you. I haven't really intended to speak, but
Councillor Wilkinson's made a number of points. I'm not arguing with him. I just wish to point out two things that arise out of what he said. One of the comments he made was about people not caring which council deliver services. But they do care if they pay more than once for the same thing. And the problem is if you get one council that takes on a service which is done by the borough council somewhere else, you have to make sure that some money goes to that town and parish council. Otherwise, those residents will be paying through their precept as well as through their council tax for something which is provided elsewhere. I commend Early for taking on a lot of things, but Early is in a very different position as a large town council to Swallowfield or Remenham or one of the other smaller towns and parishes, which doesn't even have a proper full-time clerk. So there is a great difference, and that's why our amendment talks about consulting with them about their willingness and their ability to take on appropriate additional functions. We're not arguing about the principle of whether we should be encouraging it to happen or working with them. We're simply saying we need to be careful about how we go about this and make sure that we get everything right by talking at length and sensibly to them. Because in the past, there have been occasions where the council has tried to offload things onto towns and parishes, particularly things like grass cutting, without any money, and arrived at parish council meetings, in my own case at Winnersh, with a piece of paper that said this is what we want you to do. And if that's the approach that we try again, it's not going to work, it's going to upset them all over again, and all the work that's been done in the last few years to build up those relationships with town and parishes will all have been in vain.
Councillor Pauline Jurgensen, please.
Just like to add something to Prue's comments. I can only speak about Early because that's really what I know the detail of. I can say in Early that we have taken on quite a lot of services and developed services in partnership with the Borough Council. They have not been double taxation. We've actually provided better value for money for the borough, for the residents by cooperating with the borough. We've made the services more local. We've increased the booking levels of the services because they can book them locally, and we've reduced the cost. So it's a win-win situation. It reduces the cost for the Borough Council, it also improves the service and improves the value for the Town Council residents, and in the end we get a better result. So I agree with Norman, unusually, but actually we can work together with the Borough and we can deliver good value, and that really residents are not bothered about where the service is produced as long as they get good value for money and they can influence it. The advantage of having some services delivered at the Town Council is actually they're closer to the local residents. So I would support the original motion.
Councillor Robson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, to respond to Gary Coward's question about double taxation, I can happy to confirm here we have absolutely no plan for double taxation. I don't really know where that's actually come from, other than the Liberal Democrat amendment, which I just don't understand what they mean. I just hope they understand what they mean. The amendment is absolutely not necessary, as we are making steady progress as we are. And with respect, Tom, had you come to the last meeting, you would have known that.
I missed one meeting.
Well, but that was the one that actually I'm talking about.
I've read the minutes, it doesn't actually say you did anything.
I'm very pleased, and I do hope, and I do hope you come to the next meeting on the 23rd of April, and here's a personal invitation, that we actually want to take this agenda forward. As far as progress is concerned, it will be reported back here when we have some agreement with the town and parish councils at the right time. But they have to feel comfortable with this. I want to do it with them. I'm not going to do it to them. It is an issue which is going to take time. It's going to build trust, but it is a vital piece of work that we do work together. Now, what I'm going to ask the council to do is to reject this amendment. It is not necessary. The original amendment should stand and actually will deliver significant developments over a period of time. So I'm asking for refusal of the amendment and acceptance of the original amendment 355 as proposed. Motion. Should I say amendment? No, I want to, let's be clear here. Refuse the amendment and accept the original motion 355 as in the agenda. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We are now going to vote on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I take the votes for councillors 40?
I vote in favour of motion 355.
There's not somebody will come up.
Sorry, James. My apologies to all. I vote against the amendment.
Baker.
Against.
Babb.
Against.
Barry.
Against.
Bradley.
Against.
Bray. Shopping.
Against.
Clark. Cowan.
Against.
Ferris.
For.
Burbidger.
Against.
Gilder.
For.
Gore.
Against.
Grandison.
Against.
Haynes. K.
Against.
Haynes. M.
Against.
Hayden Taylor.
Against.
Colson. Hayward.
Abstain.
Kelly Simons.
Against.
Allsworth. Fulton.
Against.
Jorgensen N. Jorgensen P.
Against.
Kaiser.
Against.
King.
Against.
Lee.
Against.
Loyes.
Against.
McCann.
For.
McGee Sumner.
Against.
Meyer.
Against.
Murphy.
Against.
Monroe.
Against.
Hammond.
Against.
Pitter.
Against.
Pitts.
Against.
Pollock.
Against.
Ramooni.
For.
Richards.
Against.
Ross.
Against.
Rowland. Shepherd de Boy.
For consultation and for the amendment.
Singleton.
Abstain.
Slight.
Against.
Smith.
Abstain.
Stanton.
Against.
Swaddle.
Against.
Tomlin.
For.
Weeks.
Against.
White.
Against.
Guinness.
Against.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Somebody else has got a microphone on somewhere, I fear.
It's there.
But can we have a name vote for the main motion, please? 355.
Yeah, I'd like to vote first.
I believe 5 people have to do that.
Well, that's
Five people.
There you go. Follow the room.
The amended motion is made. We are now going back to discuss the original motion. And I'd like to hear from Philip Holdsworth, who indicated he wanted to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome this opportunity to support this motion. I represent, as you know, the ward and the parish council. I've also served on the Borough Board working department since I was misunderstood. It's become increasingly clear that we need a different sort of dialogue. And that I think it's a general view of the parish council.
Sorry, could you just put your mic up a bit? Thank you. Thank you.
I think we all welcome the opportunity to contribute, especially the opportunity just to influence and shape the outcome. I know that there's nothing more frustrating than the feeling that you can't influence a decision. And therefore I urge the council to explore this possibility of greater partnership working in the earliest stage before planning the proposal for May 23. And I think there are 2 significant issues for the smaller parishes. One is the precepts, which are in many cases quite small. And secondly, there's the human resources. A lot of them have to go to happen. So we can...
I'm sorry, Mr. Director, could you speak closer to the microphone?
I'm sorry. Is that better? Is that better? Yeah. It's have to shout. Sorry about that. Okay, there are two significant issues, as I said, for the smaller parishes. One is the precept, and one is the human resource. Now, I understand there is some sort of area management. I'm not quite sure what form it takes, but again, I think that's an area that could be explored. With all this in mind, I support the motion as a first step to a greater understanding between communities and the borough.
Thank you very much. Councillor Norman Johnson, please.
I think I covered most of my points previously. I think the area that we do need to encourage the discussion of the future of a lot of these services and facilities, and certainly to fill in the area to do that better, it will give a better outcome locally. So I think, again, I support the motion. I covered most of my points in the area speech, so
Councillor McCann.
Thank you. I hadn't actually intended to speak on the motion because I was sort of hoping that we would all be singing from the same hymn sheet. Most members will know that we have been working pretty closely with the people concerning the church and parish councils and the ways of working together in the future. But just because a motion doesn't come from the Conservative group doesn't mean it doesn't have value. You guys have really got to understand that we don't think the same as you, and we know you don't think the same as us. But every now and again, occasionally, we will walk the same road together. And this is a road I feel we could be walking down together. There are some issues about capabilities to deliver services. There is issues about funding. The biggest concerns and fears that most towns and parish councils have is that you're going to come in, you're going to demand that they do stuff, and they're not quite sure how to do it. 9 times out of 10, they'll walk away. We don't want that. We genuinely want them to feel part of the group, part of the vision that we have as a borough, independent of our political and that their vision becomes part of our vision, and it makes up a big jigsaw of visions from which we help deliver as part of our borough-wide responsibility. I'm going to abstain from voting on this full motion. It's not because I don't fully agree with it, and it's not because I completely disagree with it. It's just I think you missed the point. So thank you.
Councillor Farmer, please.
Thank you. I'd just really like to take up on a couple of points really. I'm rather saddened by the stance taken by the Liberal Democrats. This is not a political thing, this is working together. Talking at the top of the
When you say something's political and we say something, you're political as well.
Councillor Ferris,
I'm trying to have my say. If you'll give me some leave.
please carry on.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that, Madam Mayor. Picking up on Tom McCann and Crew Ray's point, this is evolution, it's not revolution. We need to take the towns and parishes along with Wokingham Borough Council. Okay? It doesn't have to be told, not demanding, not ordering. That's entirely not what I'm after at all. Also, with the Tommy's point, there is a genuine will to work. This is not what you were going to say. It might have been that way before.
1 minute left.
Okay, well, I'll be very, very quick. I'm delighted to second this motion. During my visits to all 17 towns and parishes, as chairman of Borough Parish working within this borough of Wokingham, it became apparent they all wanted a better working relationship with Wokingham Borough Council. The key areas are communication, cooperation and partnership working. This is especially crucial with the community infrastructure levy. With Wokingham Borough Council's budget being further squeezed by central government, it makes sense for all towns and parishes to take on more responsibility, providing of necessary funds. This is especially so for smaller parish councils. Indeed, it's quite possible and should be encouraged for such councils to work together and share costs and resources. At the end of the day, we need to continue to improve our top service the residents demand and expect. I'm delighted to be seconding this motion, and I'm fully supportive of this motion and commend it to this council. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, Councillor Sandon, as the proposer, has the right to reply. You wish to?
Well, merely to say thank you, Madam Mayor, that I think the original motion says it all. I guess the other point I would like to stress here, following this debate, is that we are very keen to work with town and parish councils. I want to work with them. I do not want to do things to them. I think it is a very, very, very important partnership going forward, not to be rushed, but to be done properly and professionally. And I would therefore ask the council tonight to support that motion to enable that work to continue with the town and parish councils. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And we now going to have a recorded vote. Over to you.
Can I have the votes for councillors Alty?
4.
Baker?
4.
Batt?
4.
Bowring?
4.
Bradley?
4.
Bray?
Abstain.
Topping?
4.
Clark?
Abstain.
Cowan?
4.
Ferris?
Abstain.
Frobisher?
4.
Gilder?
Abstain.
Gore? Grandison?
4.
Haynes? K?
4.
Haynes M?
4.
Hayden Taylor? Hayward?
4.
Ellie Simons?
4.
Portsworth?
4.
Bolton?
4.
Jorgensen N?
4.
Jorgensen P?
4.
Kaiser?
4.
King?
4.
Lee?
4.
Loyce?
4.
McCann?
Abstain.
McGee Sumner?
4.
Mile?
4.
Merkin?
4.
Monroe?
4.
Hammond?
4.
Pittock?
4.
Pitts?
4.
Pollock?
4.
Mooney?
Abstain.
Walking down the road together, eh?
4.
Ross?
4.
Rowling? Shepherd's Way?
Abstain. Executive style consultations, which don't really consult anything.
Singleton?
Abstain.
Slight?
5.
Smith?
4.
Stanton?
4.
Swaddle?
4.
Tomlin?
Abstain.
Weeks?
4.
Wyatt?
4.
Eunice?
4.
The motion is carried. And this concludes tonight's council meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.